talking about transitions. I'm gonna open up the slideshow I was working on. Open project. Find it in my folder for the class, my Premiere project. The project labeled my last name, first initial, slideshow. Open. And we'll talk about the screenshots that are going to be due today. So I'm going to also go into our course on Canvas. So I'm going to go to canvas.abcadultschool.edu and log in. And go into our course, student view, and look. Okay, so then when you click on assignments, you'll see the upcoming assignment that's due today by the end of class is to make screenshots. So I'm going to click on slideshow screenshots and just to show you what we'll be doing. So at any stage in the process of completing the assignment, please create and submit the following screenshots to show your work. So far we've been learning how to do keyframing and how to use transitions. So it's just to create a screenshot that shows you did some keyframing by screenshotting your effect controls panel, and then do a screenshot that shows that you've been using transitions. So screenshot what you did in your timeline. So if I wanted to do that, I could start with any clip that I did animation on. Let's see, where did I do animation? Well, the first one I did animation on because there's movement. There's movement in this clip. So I can select the clip, and then I can go to my effect controls panel, and you can see that there are circles here. That means there's keyframing. But to be even more detailed, you can open up the properties, and then you'll see my keyframes. And I even changed the velocity, so these are not linear keyframes. You could just show linear keyframing. There's no requirement to do any velocity changes. That's a little advanced. We go into more detail on that in the next Premiere class. If that's confusing, don't worry. So I just flipped open the opacity property because I also did keyframing there. So this shows there's keyframing on this clip that's selected. So all I have to do is screenshot this.
Are you sharing your screen?
Oh, silly me. I'm sorry. Thank you for letting me know what I was doing wrong here. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. Share. Okay, so what I was talking about was here. I found a clip that I got something in chat. Oh, okay. Huntington has a question. Yeah, the song does not have to be. The song can be copyright restricted for this assignment. Yeah. And if you put it up on YouTube, the worst thing that can happen is that
I lose my channel.
I don't think they take down your whole channel, but they might make it so you can't put up that video, or you might get an email saying that it's been detected that you're using material that's owned by someone else, other than you, and you might see advertising come up on your video and on YouTube. That's gonna go to profit the owner, the company that owns that copyright that you're on the material you're using. So that happened to me before. It's no biggie. Take it as a compliment. Someone's making money off of my art that I'm using, that I've done in collaboration with their art. They were just the bigger guy out there that could make money off of it. Okay. So Seth is here. Thank you for signing in. All right, so I have this clip. I found this clip here that I put keyframing on. So I select it first. Then I went to effect controls, and everything, when you first go to effect controls, all of your properties are closed up. And even just this, with just showing circles here, indicates that there's keyframing. So you could just screenshot that and I'll just be like, yeah, there's keyframing there. But if you want to be even nicer to me and give me more details on what you did, then you can open up your properties and then it will show your keyframing. So I'm opening up motion and it's showing I did keyframing on position. And I'm clicking the triangle to open up opacity, and it's showing the keyframes on opacity. The keyframes on opacity are linear. The keyframes on position are not linear because I messed with the velocity. I did a velocity change here where the velocity is increasing from one keyframe to the next, and that's why the keyframes are hourglass shaped. But you don't have to do that. I just did it to make my keyframing look a little more interesting. We're going to learn more about this in the next Premiere class. So see how it kind of, the movement, the motion kind of speeds up as it speeds up to from my mom to my baby. Speeds up and slows down a little bit. That's because there's a velocity change there that happened. So I would, for the credit for this assignment, you just select any clip that has keyframing. You don't have to do this on more than one clip. Just any clip that that's representative about the work that you've been doing so far and shows that you've done some keyframing. And then you just go to you select that clip, you bring up your effect controls panel, and you screenshot your effect controls panel. So to screenshot on a Mac, you use Command Shift 4. So you press Command, hold Shift, and tap 4. And then you get this cursor like this with looks like a target. And then you just click and drag a box around what you want to screenshot, which is the effect controls panel. And then it creates a screenshot and normally it would end up on the desktop, but I have the new QuickTime, so I think it might end up somewhere else for me. I'll have to see where it went. It might be going to the same place that I set the videos to save to. Let me just check. But normally the screenshot is just going to end up saving it as a PNG on your desktop for a Mac. There are different instructions if you are on Windows. You use I believe the snippet program. Yeah, my screenshot, because I set I set everything to go to this folder, so it's going to this folder. Okay, so then the other part of the instructions for this assignment is to make a screenshot that shows that you've been using transitions and experimenting with transitions on your cuts. So you can just look at your timeline. I'm going to zoom out a little bit here and find where you've done some transitions. And so I've got a bunch of different transitions here at the end. So this is a good place for me to show in my timeline. I just navigate to that part of the timeline to show that there are transitions there. And then I'll just screenshot this section of my timeline. So I'm going to just do Command-Shift-4 and then draw a screenshot around my timeline here. Probably shouldn't have closed up that window where my screenshots were going. So they're going to... So now I've got these two screenshots. And I'd like you to label them according to the assignment. Label them last name, first initial, dash keyframes, and last name, first initial, dash transitions. So this one is showing my keyframing, so I'll just do last name, first initial, dash keyframes. And then the other one's showing where my transitions are. So I do last name, first initial, dash transitions. And then I recommend you just put these in your folder for the class. So I'm just going to go new. And do I have a folder? I do have a folder that I created in my folder for the class called screenshots. So it's good to stay organized like that. So you have a backup of everything you turn in also. So I'm going to move these off. And then you go into Canvas, log into Canvas, go to assignments, and choose the Slideshow Screenshots assignment. And then you just click Start Assignment. You click Upload File, choose File, and then I choose my folder for the class in my Screenshots folder, the one that's called Keyframes to show my keyframing. And then you need to click Add Another File because you're going to do two here. Upload File, choose File, and then I'll choose the Transitions one. Open. So now I've got my two screenshots loaded, and then I click Submit Assignment. And if you get it in before the end of class today, you get a confetti party. Like that. And I think I might have... Did I have instructions on doing screenshots in one of the previous assignments? Maybe I should.
On the first one.
On the first one. I should probably copy and paste it for you guys for the next one. What was it? Was it in this one? No. Oh, in the subclip one. Let's see. Past assignments. Maybe
Navi,
this one. Mm-hmm.
Can I watch your video again? Where I wanna see where you change the velocity.
Oh. Yeah, I'm working on getting all the videos on YouTube so I can make a page in Canvas for you, since for some reason they haven't been processing on Google Drive you could try to download it. I don't know if anyone has tried downloading the videos. Are they working if you download them?
Yeah, it doesn't go through. It doesn't download.
Really? I'm sorry about that. I'm gonna have to get them up on YouTube then for you. It's just a process. See if I can do that. Yeah, it's the first assignment that has the instructions. If you forgot how to make a screenshot, you can go to the first assignment, the MAOP media arrange. But I could probably get that copied and pasted into the other assignments too. Probably be helpful. But at the bottom, it has instructions on how to create screenshots for this class. In fact, I could just try to do it now. I'm gonna copy this. So you have instructions for if you're on a Mac and instructions if you're on a PC. So if I go to, let me leave student view. And if I go to assignment for the screenshot assignment that's today, slideshow screenshots, I can edit this. And I'll put, okay, so I just added the instructions here for how to create screenshots into this assignment. So it's here for you too. Question?
When I change my picture to the timeline and it change the resolution, how do I keep it the original?
Like when you make the picture bigger?
No, mine make it came back smaller.
When you made what changed the resolution?
Like I have the shot of the picture, and when it go to the timeline, it's only.
Oh, that could be because the image itself that you're putting in the timeline is smaller than the image size that you set for your sequence settings.
So I go to the sequence setting and then change it.
Yeah. Do you want to share your screen?
Yeah.
You on Zoom? Well, I'll be able to help you individually in just a minute. I just want to run through the lesson, and then I can help people individually.
Thank you.
Okay.
Sequence is great. How to get the sequence, create a new sequence. Answer your question.
Oh, your question is how to create a new sequence?
Yeah, gray out. See whether it hit the menu, the drop down menu, the sequence on gray out. Not open.
Because you have to go to File New for creating a new sequence. File New Sequence.
Okay.
Yeah. Because there's no sequence yet, so you have to create a new sequence from File New.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Let's just run through here and look at the lesson presentations. Lesson 9 and 10. I think we're almost done going through this. We're on transitions, adding video transitions, and we're talking about the default transition, changing the default transition, and applying the default transition. So, another cool thing that you can do with your default transition is let's say I wanted to apply transitions across a whole bunch of cuts at a time. I think I can select a whole bunch of clips like this, and I think there's a way to apply the default transition to them. Let's see. I want to go into my, open up my video transitions, and now because I restarted the system, the default transition is back to being the default cross dissolve. Remember, you can change your default transition, but I guess I'll leave it on cross dissolve. I want to go to my menu pop out here and set the default transition duration to something shorter, which is also in preferences and timeline. So the default duration, let's say I want it to be 10 frames, really short. And I say okay. Like to access my microphone again. Does that mean it stopped recording? I don't know. But let's try, I'm going to try to use the keyboard shortcut and see if it will go across all these selected clips. You guys remember the keyboard shortcut for applying the default transition? What is it? It was Control D on Windows, Command D on a Mac. Let's try it. I'm going to activate my timeline by clicking here. My clips are selected. I'm going to try Command D. Hey, it worked. Do you see that? I'm going to zoom in. Because all the clips that I had selected now have cross dissolve on all the cuts between them. May the good Lord be with you down ever. So that's what's going on now. Some of these need to be fixed. Like this picture, I need to fix it. So I need to select it, and I need to move him down in view. Or this one. These need to be, some of them need to be framed because I just slapped them down in the timeline without making any adjustments. Because I might decide to animate them, but at least you're not going to animate. At least frame everything right so that it's going to look good as it plays out. So now, may the good Lord be with you down. Uh-oh, it's not previewing. May the good Lord be with you down every road. So that's a way to apply the default transition across a whole bunch of clips all at once. So you select all the clips and then you use the keyboard shortcut to apply the transition, and it's going to put the default. But if I change my mind, I have to go and delete one by one. Select each clip like that, one by one. Okay, then let's look at, we already know how to set a different default transition, right? Does everyone know how to do that? Yesterday we did that. Okay, let's move on. Click on set selected as default transition. So those are the ways right here that we're reminding you that you can go to the Effects Panel Menu Options button. Like you can select a different transition and go to the Effects Menu button and then choose Set Selected as Default. So now it went to, now the default transition switched to dip to white. Or you can right click a different transition, like we saw, like cube spin, right click, and then choose Set Selected as Default Transition. So now everything will do a cube spin. If I select a bunch of clips now, and then I do Command D, now cube spin went across all of these. So now we can see what it looks like with. I don't know if I like that. So I'll just Command Z to undo that. Okay. So we looked at all this. Sequence display changes. Let's see. We looked at this. Previewing. I don't know if you guys are aware of this little button here will hide or reveal the timeline view in your effect controls panel. So if I have a clip selected, there's this button here at the top, this little arrow. You can click on it and it'll maximize your view of your properties in the effect controls, but it will hide the timeline. And if you want the timeline back for the clip, you can click on this little arrow and it'll reveal the timeline for that selected clip, the clip timeline. Someone has their hand up in Zoom. Who's that? Did someone put their hand up? Oops. It says someone put their hand up. Oh, 2 people have their hand up. Huntington and Tracy. Do you guys have something you'd like to say?
My effects won't show up. Like when I pull them in, they're there, but just they don't like show like the thing. Oh, the effect is there.
Oh, the transition, you mean?
Yeah.
So the transition.
It shows, but it won't say like in my video thing. It's like, oh, transition was made.
You mean in your effect controls panel? It's not showing?
I mean in the timeline.
In the timeline, do you see the transition, the little transitions there?
No, like okay, so like you see that? I don't see that in mine.
You don't see these
No.
on the cuts, but the transition is actually happening?
Yes.
Is it, what type of transition is it that's happening?
I choose different kinds and they all just don't.
They don't show. What about if you zoom in?
I tried zooming in and
It just looks like a cut, not a transition?
Yep.
Let me see.
let's say if I just put it right here and it just kind of a
Can
little
you press plus more? Press the plus key. More. There it is.
Oh.
Yeah, you just gotta zoom way in because your transitions are really narrow.
Is there a way to extend this so people can see the name or I can see it?
Yeah, you could see what I'm doing now. You can just hover over one edge of it and drag them wider if you want.
Okay.
If you want them to the transition to be longer, then you can do that.
Thank you. That's it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's moving on here. We saw how the rolling edit tool appears when you are in the clip timeline editing a transition. Tracy, you have your hand up. I can't hear you, Tracy, if you're talking. Are you there? You're muted. You have your hand up, but you're muted. I don't know. So remember that you have the functionality of different tools. When you select a transition, it will show up in effect controls. You don't have to take a screenshot showing your transition in effect controls. You could just zoom in and show that you have transitions on your timeline for the assignment. But when you are editing a transition, you select it, and then it'll show, the controls will show up in effect controls. And in the clip timeline, you will have different functionality of tools for, you'll be able to extend or trim. When you're hovering on the cut, you will have the functionality of the rolling edit tool, which is pretty cool. When you are on either side of the cut on the transition, you'll have the functionality of the slide tool to slide the transition back and forth, and that's just changing the alignment on the cut of the transition. So you have trimming tool functionality to lengthen or shorten the duration of the transition. You have rolling tool functionality to change where the cut actually is that the transition is on between the two clips. And you have slide tool functionality to change the alignment of the transition on the cut. So that's pretty cool, huh? Different tools that will appear. Okay, so that's what this is. This diagram is going over those different tool functionalities that you have when you are editing your transition in the effect controls in the timeline, the clip timeline. And this is just showing what the a transition looks like if you're using it on a cut between video clips where there is no handle room. So we talked about that too. You'll see the striping that appears, and what that means is that, see the last frame of this video, of the first video, the A-side video, is being duplicated out as a still image for a duration of time, for the duration of time that the transition needs to complete the transition. And the first frame of the B-side video is also generated into frames, duplicated out for the duration that the transition needs to complete. Does that make sense? So we were looking at that before. And this is what I was just talking about, applying transitions to multiple clips at once, dragging clips to the timeline, select a series of clips in the project panel, drag them to the timeline, select all the clips on the timeline, and then you can use the keyboard shortcut, or you can go to sequence, apply default transition to selection. So I did it, I used the keyboard shortcut when I did it, but it looks like you could also go sequence, apply default transition to the selection, but it also has the shortcut here. This looks like Shift D would be the shortcut for that. But I used Command D and it worked. Apply video transition is Command D here. Okay. Okay, let's just go through this. And then we already went through using the automating feature. When you use that that nifty automate to sequence button, as long as you have more than one clip video or image clip item selected in your project panel, then you can always automate to sequence, and everything will go down into the timeline from where your playhead is, and it's going to be giving you the option to apply the default transition for audio and for video if you want. So that's another use of the default transition. And then finally, let's get into the last part of this lesson, which is adding audio transitions. So I'm gonna do, let's see, what am I gonna do here? Let's say I wanted this to end with the actual ending of the song. So I'm gonna zoom way out here, and I'm gonna trim this down to maybe here, and then I'm going to put my playhead at the end. I'm going to put my playhead, let me select my A1 here, audio 1 track, and press the down arrow to get my playhead to line up with the end of my audio. And then I'm going to go and double click on my audio clip here. Double click on that. And let's say I want to skip to the ending here because I want just like a real ending. Let me just go. I'm just gonna bring down my audio here. So if I wanted to use that ending, or if I wanted to use just something else later in the song, and okay, let me check how this one, where I end up here in the time on the timeline. Okay, so let's say I just wanted to go to a different verse in the song. Let's see. Maybe here. Maybe I really like this verse at the end. So I'm going to put my playheader here and press I. So maybe I just decide I want to start here. So I marked an in here. And then I'm going to go down to my timeline and press I here. And let's say I knew I just want to end here at the, so I press O. So I have an in and an out marked in my timeline, and I have an in point marked in my source. And then, so that's a 3-point edit. So I can just do overwrite. And so it didn't go all the way to the actual ending, but that's okay because I could just put a transition on the end or keyframe the end to fade out to make an ending. But now I have an issue because I have a cut here. Let's see, that will create sort of a seam maybe. So I want to just hear what that sounds like. Let me just erase this. Oh, and I should probably stop recording and make a new